everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this lunchtime in Japan. And it is 1 o'clock here in Brisbane. How are you all doing? So, welcome to this show. This is about top tips of working in Japan. So, before I invite my amazing guest, John Speirs, I just wanted to briefly, explain this live streaming. This will last about 45 minutes, and I hope this session can cover what it's like to work in Japan. And also, we will ask a few questions to John, and John will explain or tell us about his language learning journey. And if you have any, questions in between, feel free to type. Oh, we have someone arriving. Konnichiwa, Manabe-san. Thank you for coming. Yes. So yeah, if you're also interested in cultural difference between UK, Japan, and also learning about, tips of working in Japan, hope this live streaming will be something useful for you. So let's bring our guest, John. Hi. Let me change the layout. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. Thank you. How are you?
Great to have you. This is quite exciting. And, I hope this will be a fun session for you and myself. I'm really keen to learn. Oh, cool music. Sakurako-san. So good to see everyone, arriving. Thank you so much. If you're watching this live, tell us where you're from or anything you want to learn or, interested in knowing. Please let us know by commenting. So, or if you're watching this archive, welcome. So let's start with our self-introduction. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Ray Eichmann, and I'm originally from Japan, Tokyo, Japan. I have lived and worked and studied in Taiwan, USA, Thailand, UK, Australia. Now I'm based in Brisbane, Australia. I'm an intercultural specialist doing intercultural training or global skill coaching. So that's me. I am a mom to twin boys. As you can see, this is basically every day. Seeing our boys fighting over something. So I'm sure you can relate to this if you're, mom or dad. So I do online training and coaching. And my energy boosters is coffee and red wine. So that's me. And let's pass the mic to you, John. Tell
Yeah.
us about you.
Okay. So, as it says, I do live in Tokyo. I moved to Japan in 2016. I obviously lived in England. I'm from England, London, England. Content creation, yeah, it's something that I do here and now. I make YouTube videos. Horrible YouTube videos, which I'm too shy to show, so you're not going to see them for a long time. I'm the only foreigner in a Japanese company. That's true. We did have someone temporarily, but they left, and I remain the only foreigner in the Japanese company. I've worked in a few Japanese companies, but then one I'm working in now, it's very Japanese. So yes, I'm also, I love matcha, as it says. I drink a lot of matcha. I love matcha sweets, like matcha parfaits. It's how I spend my free time. Most of the time is I go to Gion Sujiri is like a very famous like a tea shop originally, I believe, but they sell like ice creams and stuff like that as well. And last but not least, I'm an otaku because of course
This is so cool that I wonder, like anyone not in Japan or not really specifically knowing about Japanese culture, is it quite common, say otaku and people understand what it is?
Oh yeah, it's funny because there are like some companies that also use the word otaku as well, like
Really?
within their titles. So it's known well enough to that extent, that people will see the word and then they will associate it with probably like anime and Japan, something along those lines. Yeah.
So just to let everyone know, I prepared this icon. So it's not John chose this one, but my image, I wasn't sure what otaku, emoji
I
or...
think it's fairly accurate. This is what I look like on the weekend. Yes. This is my weekend suit.
But there's so many otaku culture, right? Can you tell us one thing, what kind of genre that,
Oh, okay.
if
So
you don't
see
mind.
here,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a difference because in
Mm,
probably, I guess you'd say abroad,
mm,
when we hear the word otaku,
mm.
we don't think specifically. We think mainly like anime into Japanese culture,
Right.
that kind of stuff, like the anime side. But I think here it's like specific types of otaku, right? So you
Yeah.
have
So many.
idol
So many.
otaku,
Yeah.
right? History otaku,
Yeah.
train otaku, that kind of stuff. For me, because I like different kinds of things, it's hard for me to say I'm just this otaku because I
Okay.
like
Right.
different things. But I would
Yeah.
say, if I had to say one thing, I'm definitely a VTuber otaku.
Like what
Uh,
you VTuber.
VTuber, yeah. So
Okay.
I really like VTubers. I watch
Mm-hmm.
them a lot, but I
Mm.
also like anime,
Yeah.
manga,
Yeah.
all the usual kind of things that you could think of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this is so powerful, like anime and all this otaku culture is
mm,
so worldwide.
it
And
is.
that
Yeah.
is a lot of, times that people interested in, Japanese culture or Japanese,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely, absolutely. It's I dare say it's thanks to this culture that Japan is as famous as it is.
Mm.
I dare say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Manabe-san said Jobu otaku and Kitaku otaku, two types exist in company. And which one are you, Kitaku?
Kitaku.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you, everyone. If you have, any questions, you can type in here or comments. Feel free. But let's start with the language-related question
Hmm.
to John. How many languages do you speak, and what is your fluency?
Mainly two. Just
Mm,
English as native and Japanese is what I would say. I understand, like, well, I studied German in
mm.
school and
Wow.
French. Most of us in the UK, it's like either French and German or Spanish and another language, which I'm forgetting at the moment. But we usually learn like another language during school.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand some German when
Yeah.
it's spoken to me. And I have family in Germany and I've been to
Right.
Germany several times. So, but
Okay.
mainly what I would say is that I'm a fluent, well, obviously native English speaker, and I'm fluent in Japanese.
Awesome. Quick question from Sakurako-san. What's the difference between otaku and geek? John, what do you think? Is it similar or a bit different? I think.
Uh, Otaku is usually translated into geek.
Oh,
Because
okay.
it's an easier way of
Mm,
explaining what the word means. But when
mm,
you get into specifics,
mm,
um, yeah, they're like, I think, minor differences, but they're fairly similar, I think,
mm.
in nature.
Yeah.
But a geek,
Is it more
uh,
like a technical IT computer image, but does it apply to
it can be.
culture as well?
But I also have like people who are really into Star Wars, say, or
Yeah, okay. You can say,
that kind of side of things. It definitely
yeah,
has like a Western sort of feel to it when I hear the word geek. When I
right.
hear otaku,
Yeah,
the word
that's,
itself, if you say
yeah,
that to like an English speaking audience, they're gonna immediately think anime,
yeah.
manga,
Japanese. Yeah.
Japanese, exactly that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good to know. Thank you for your question, Sakurako-san. Right. Okay. So let's move on to our next question. How many countries have you lived and where?
It's just England, London is where I'm from, and
Mm,
at the moment, yeah, Japan, Tokyo. So
okay.
basic, yeah.
Cool. Thank you. And why did you want to learn
Uh,
Japanese?
okay, so I found the Japanese language to be very attractive. Is the
Mm-hmm.
best way that I put it. In that, of course, being an otaku, I watch a lot of anime and I
Yeah.
hear the language quite a lot. And I just thought, wow, this I don't know what it is, but I like the sound of it.
Mm,
And I just decided to try it. I didn't like
mm,
go fully deep into learning it. I just tried it a little bit, studied like here and there, and just got more into it. And I just fell in love with the language itself. And
yeah.
the more I studied, the more I understood about the culture, the more I wanted to study it. And then eventually I got that idea of, I want to move to Japan one day. And
Wow.
that just encouraged me to
Yeah.
study more and harder. And I just had
Yeah.
that idea in my head. I'm studying the language now because I want to move to Japan. That's eventually what it became to. Yeah.
When was that?
Wow,
When was it?
this
Young?
a long time ago. This is now it's because this was back in university.
Right.
Now it's like 15 years ago.
Mm,
When I first, started to study.
mm,
Uh and during university I think there's going to be a different question for this, but I just studied by myself. And yeah, while I was doing my university studies, which was computing, I basically have an IT background.
mm,
I started to study Japanese on my own. So
mm.
yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, okay. Well, that is kind of the following question.
Right.
So, how did you, because everyone, じゃあちょっと日本
Yeah.
語で話しますけれどもね、ジョン。
はい。
はい。ジョンの日本語は本当に、本当にすごいんですよ。どうですか？
はい。
いや。
どうですかって。
でしょ？ You
どうですかっ
can
て
just
わかんないですけど。
so the fluence that you can
Yes.
hear from John's Japanese is really high, quite amazing. So just
I'm
wondering.
I'm very Nihongo Jozu. That's correct.
日本語上手です。So yeah, how did you do this? How did you learn? Like one day, oh, I want to go to Japan. I want to learn Japanese, and from zero to now, what was your, progress? How
Mm.
did you develop?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I studied by myself initially,
Mm,
and that was for
yeah.
like the first 6 months, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I did. I listened. I got some Japanese language tapes. It played. I repeated. It played. I repeated, and I did that again for like 2 or 3 hours a day, and then sometimes 4 hours, 5 hours, something like that. I'd be playing like a video game, then I'd be listening to it. I'd be just saying it. It's not really the most
Wow.
practical way, but I feel like that helped me develop the accent. The accent, I feel like I just developed just from that repeated sort of way of learning. But I didn't really know grammar structure or anything like that. I just knew the accent from that. And then I took Japanese as a minor in university because we had that option. Then at the
Mm.
same time, I went to a Japanese school. So after university finished, I would go to Japanese school.
Tell me about that Japanese school. What is it? Who will go to that Japanese school? Is it like a Japanese people school or?
Yeah, so it's they're all Japanese people, and they would only speak to you in Japanese. It's an immersion kind of thing. It's run by a
In
Japanese
London,
person.
right?
Yeah, in London. Yeah, I
So
mean we have a
yeah.
very big Japanese community in London.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So
it's
that's
not.
like a Nihongo Gakko, or is
Yes,
it
Nihongo Gakko. Yes.
Nihongo Gakko for Japanese people and you went there too?
No. For foreigners. So it's
Foreigners.
for who
Wow.
wants it. It's a Japanese language school,
Yeah. Okay,
right?
that's a proper
Yeah.
Japanese language school. Wow. That's really, inspiring because you went to uni school
Hmm.
and extra you decided to do
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
back then, did you already decide, okay, by what age I want to go to Japan like that?
Ah.
Or just
It,
randomly, okay, I'll just study Japanese and see how it goes?
no, I had the idea. Well, I first had to understand how would I get to Japan? How would I move to Japan in the first place?
Mm,
And I was looking up the prerequisites for it,
yeah.
and among them was like you need a university degree,
Mm,
and a certain amount of money, that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, so I need to graduate first. So
mm.
my idea was I was going to move to Japan after I graduated from university. So that's all I had in my mind was like after university I'm going to move to Japan, and
Oh,
I was just
wow.
like studying Japanese to accomplish that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's quite cool to hear that. Like, I think it's quite minority, to study
Mm.
Japanese back then. But anyway, so yeah, what do you enjoy the most about learning Japanese?
Yeah, you put in a lot of time and effort into it,
Mm,
and when it comes to, I think, just people who learn a different language, I think everybody's going to say the same thing. It's like what makes you feel like you accomplished something out of that is when you finally understand
mm.
something that is within the media, or like conversation between two native speakers, something like that. It's like, oh, I know what they're saying. I understand what they're saying. I understand what this says. I can read this sentence. I can, comprehend the context. Like that is an amazing
Yeah.
feeling of like accomplishment. It's like all that hard work, all that effort paid off. And for me, that was what it was like. And I obviously otaku, so I read manga. And when I could read like a Japanese manga for the first time, I was like, oh my god, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm becoming like a true otaku, 100% pure blood otaku.
You don't need any English version manga. You can
Exactly.
just go to Japan, read anything.
No more subtitles. I can just like look. It's just a feeling of accomplishment. It's like I've done my job as an otaku.
Wow.
Yes.
I understand that feeling, you did it, that moment of the freedom. It's same to any Japanese people who are learning English, there's so many Japanese are learning English, but that will open the door so many opportunities, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, awesome. So yeah, how about the other? At least enjoy the
Of
least.
course, the flip side.
Yeah.
The thing about that's okay. I think every culture has its sort of unspoken aspect to it, right? Like there's things which only maybe even not even within that country, within that city or within that town, everybody understands what's going on, that context, right? That unspoken context, and that's what you call joshiki, like common sense, right? Or something like that. Understanding that in like Japanese societal context is extremely difficult. It's really hard to understand what was going on, like the unspoken rules, the things that were not coming through necessarily just from the words alone.
Yeah.
Because when you learn a language, you're interpreting it through your own culture, right?
Yeah.
And the language, the words you already know and what they mean. But in a different context, cultural context, it takes on a completely different meaning, and trying to just understand that was very difficult, very long. And that's I could say that was the least enjoyable aspect of learning Japanese, for sure.
Yeah, because that's at the end, it's not really language, right? That's beyond the context, and that's really more to it. So I totally understand it's really challenging. Right, so let's move on to something, a more culture related topic. Is what was a culture shock when you faced when you just started working in Japan?
Yeah. In the UK, we have work, and then we have our private lives, and work is only to help our private lives, and it's just that aspect. Some people will say that their work is their life, their job is their life, that kind of thing, but that's like that individual person saying that. But in Japan, work is everything to like everyone, and it's like the center of the whole society, and everything is sort of based around that structure, that like you're going to work for this many hours, the person not working is going to be available to do these things. Everything is structured around like work, and that was something that was kind of shocking to me, because again, I'm an otaku, and the people that produced anime, the people that produced this kind of stuff are Japanese, like Japanese people. So I was like, there was an idea that, okay, so Japanese people must have a lot of hobbies, that they're doing all kinds of different things. And then you see, people in Harajuku wearing the different clothes and fashion, and you think like, oh, okay, so they must really value their private lives and things outside of work. But when you come here, it's like, oh, there's people who don't know what to do with their free time after they finish work. There's only people who only think of work. There's people who take the first train to go to work and then leave on the last train. And it's like,
that's the job otaku that Manabe-san was talking about, right?
Yeah, right. But like, if you were like a job kitaku, you would be viewed badly, and you wouldn't do as well. And you would, so it's the society views that the right way you should be doing things is in this kind of way, that you and you're valued in that kind of way. And that was like, as a person from the UK, and we
Mm.
are like, work is here, and then when we finish, it's
Mm.
like forget it, and then it's time to go to drink. So
Yeah.
that was very different for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a quite difference. And yeah, followed by this question, well, not just maybe to yourself, but in general, you have lots of foreigner
Mm.
friends, what do you think the biggest challenge for them when they come to Japan and work?
This touches upon what I said earlier about the
Mm,
sort of unspoken aspect. Uh, within it's just work is just an extension of just the society and like the unspoken rules and the expectations that are sort of placed on you. I think of how to accomplish things and what you're supposed to be doing. And when you become shakaijin,
mm,
there is things which don't need to be said but are expected to be done. And
mm,
that's something when you come from a different culture, a different background, you grew up in a different, you don't understand. It
mm,
doesn't make any like to say that as being the reason why you
mm,
should have done that doesn't make
mm,
any sense to somebody who doesn't have that understanding, that sort of understanding that sort of societal context. It doesn't mean anything, but that was what was told to me. He was like, "You, this is Japan." Is basically what I remember my senpai telling me. I was
right.
like, "This is Japan doesn't mean anything to me."
So,
It's like,
yeah,
I know this is Japan.
I'm
I
in
took the plane
Japan.
ticket. I know it's
Right.
Japan. What does that mean to me? But for that person, it makes
Yeah,
sense to say that.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
mm,
Because
mm,
for them, it's a given
yeah,
that this is how it's done.
yeah,
So that's very difficult for foreigners to
mm,
understand, because
mm,
it's
mm,
like how are they supposed to know this,
yeah.
at all? So
That's really the main question I normally get when I do like intercultural training, like in UK or
yeah.
non-Japanese. Is like you really need to read atmosphere, that
Mm,
unspoken, rules or
mm.
context. And how do you know that? And but that is still doable, you think, John?
Well, what I think it breaks down to is that kind of it's the fit of the company with that person, at
Yeah.
the end of the day.
Mm,
And certain types of people are probably going to do better within
mm,
a Japanese working environment than others, I think,
yeah.
in general.
Mm,
But say, for example, that unspoken aspect, like your boss tells you to do A, right? From people from the UK, we think, okay, I just need to do A. But in Japan, A is coupled with B and C.
mm.
But we don't
That's
know that.
yeah.
So we need to hear A, B, and C.
Mm,
But within the Japanese work environment, they'll just say A, expecting with B and C as well.
mm,
To understand it to that point is pretty difficult. And how many people can do that? There'll be so much frustration and so
mm,
much like,
mm,
anger or like other feelings, I think, that are going to come before that, before you can get
mm.
to that point. And some people just it'll just be easier to understand than for others, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, just wanted to know more about,
Mm,
yeah. So what was your career? Because your goal was to move and work in Japan.
mm.
And yeah, what was the career change from UK to Japan?
In some ways it's fairly similar because they're both small companies.
Mm,
The company in the UK was like an online site,
mm,
EC site, selling
mm.
various goods. My boss was originally from China,
Yeah.
and he started his own company, and then he took me on board with a very, very small kind of company. So I was mainly doing sales, that kind of stuff,
Mm,
and taking care of orders, inquiries, a bunch of different things which you kind of need to do when you're a small company. You take on a few different roles. Then when I
mm,
came to Japan, initially I was like English teacher, as
mm.
everybody almost is for a certain amount of
Yeah.
time. Hated it, quit.
Mm,
And then I went
mm.
into the games industry, and I
Yeah.
did stuff in the games industry. And then I needed to have a more stable job
Mm,
that could support my visa. So
mm,
I ended up through a connection
mm,
to my current job which is also sales, but it's a bunch of different things now. But it's I do translation as well. There's customer support, a number of different things. Yeah.
Awesome. So would you say like even, well, you can totally change your career once you're in Japan, and it's if you have, like connection or experience, you can
but
develop?
you need to be careful because unlike in the UK, changing jobs is normal and it's very expected. But with that, there's lack of, say, job security compared to Japan. Japan has, I think, more of a priority on job security. But if you change jobs more than like 2 or 3 times, it doesn't necessarily look good to some companies here. So
even foreigners, they don't like
I applied for one position and through an agency, and then the agent got back to me and told me, I'm sorry, it doesn't look good. And then I asked the reason why, and he said, oh, they looked at the number of times you changed jobs. And I was like, what? That's the reason? And I was confused because they were trying to expand globally, and they were looking for foreigners, and it's like most foreigners are like this. We don't all have one job from when we graduate or anything like that, so it didn't make sense. But it's something to look out for.
Right. Okay. Well, we've got the question from Sakurako-san. Is Japan a passive-aggressive society?
Oh my god!
And Manabe-san saying that's a cute question. How do we answer this, John? Passive-aggressive. So what? In one situation, maybe they don't really say.
Okay. So Japan being a very non-direct society, right? They want to avoid trouble. They want to avoid causing, confrontation, like to escalate it. They don't want to voice. They want to say things in words like what they think is wrong, whatever. So a result of that is passive-aggressive behavior, and I've experienced it. I know what it's about. You'll get the like the fake coughs, and you'll get all kinds of things. Some foreigners have experienced more direct approaches, like a person who had their bags in front of them on the train, and it's like taking up space, and then somebody just took their bag and put it above the shelf, like without their permission.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I was like, wow, I've never seen that.
Jama desu.
Jama desu, and then just like, and I was like, I've never, seen that, but like people have said that.
Wow.
So it does happen. But the main issue with passive aggressive behavior, though, is the assumptions that are made by it. Because when you use voice, you can confirm things. So he said, did you know that? It was like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, okay. Well, but there can be a conversation going there, and there can be an understanding. Passive aggressive behavior, there's just an assumption in that person's mind, and then they act on it. Do you know what I mean? And then and it's a kind of a way to correct you forcefully without understanding any other like context of that person. That kind of stuff does happen, and that's frustrating, but you could say it in that way.
In a way, okay. Thank you, Sakurako-san, for your question. Right, move on to next question. So we've been talking about the difference and things, but what would be the similarities between British and Japanese people?
This is an interesting question. The first thing that came to my head was just like, oh, they both drink tea and they both drink alcohol.
That's so true. Tea culture and alcohol, definitely.
And alcohol, and to expand a little bit upon that, so when it comes to like a space for people to talk and to get to know each other and that kind of thing, Japanese people are not known to be like, talkative, especially with strangers and that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like being in a bar, izakaya or something like that, everyone's talking, everybody's getting to know each other and all that kind of stuff. That's very similar to the UK, because we actually don't talk to strangers like on the street. It's not a thing. I went to New York, and then like some guy started to talk to me, and I was like, what's going on?
If you're in Brisbane, you also have like a chit chat with strangers, so that's
I'll never go to Australia then.
You're too uncomfortable.
But when you're in a pub, people talk.
Mm,
People talk in a pub. So I feel like it's similar in that fashion, the
mm,
way that I express. But yeah, there are actually so many differences
mm,
as well, though, that come to
mm.
mind more than similarities. But
Yeah.
I think if you had to say, are we more similar than
Mm.
Americans? Then I'd say yes, 100%.
Really, you think
Yes. Oh yeah.
British and Americans?
I think Americans are a much more straightforward version of the UK in some ways.
Right. I think UK, British, well, compared to Americans, I find British and Japanese are very similar in a way, the history,
Hmm.
historic background, and also both are like small, kind of small islands,
Hmm.
geography and mannerism is very similar, I find.
I think we like to test the waters when it comes to like
Mm,
with a stranger. So we put a
yeah,
distance first,
yeah.
understand what they are about, and
Mm,
we do that with indirect kind of language. So
mm,
we don't want to offend the
yeah,
person, but we want to
yeah,
understand what they're about. So
yeah.
we will speak in a way that we can understand that without
Mm,
something happening, and that's
yeah.
very, I think, similar to
Yeah.
Japanese people.
Right. It might be related to this, differences. 差別はありますか？まあ、どう思いますか？差別、in what way かな？差別
I'm going to guess that the person means it between like foreigners against
うん、
foreigners in Japan is what I
yeah.
think he's saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll preface this first while saying that discrimination exists in every society. If you're in a
Universal
human
thing.
society,
Yeah.
it's there, and it doesn't matter if it's a country of the same people. It doesn't matter. It'll be about something. It'll be like your blood type. It'll be like your hair color. It'll be your hair length.
Yeah.
It'll be like straight haircut. It doesn't matter. There's always something because this
Yeah.
is humans. It does exist towards foreigners here as well. Absolutely. The more concerning thing for me is when it's governmentally okay type of discrimination. What I mean by that is, for example, when you're trying to look for a new place, and there's actually people who will refuse you on the basis of you just being a foreigner, and there will be like no foreigners allowed. That being okay for me is a problem. I understand the reasons why that's also there, but it's very hard for me to accept it because working in a Japanese company now, initially what I was told was to be very careful of foreign applicants or like people who are there, and the
Yeah.
reason being because they would leave without paying or that kind of stuff. In my experience, vast majority of the people who have had problems with are Japanese.
Right.
They're not actually foreigners. Most foreigners don't want to cause trouble because they just
Yeah.
want to get on with their lives. They know that they can be kicked out of the country. They're actually very, very fearful most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a way to prevent, like, how do you say it? It's risk management in a way
Yeah.
to just say no foreigners, and there is no law to say don't do that. So that's the problem. So Japanese people not being racist is more of the non-verbal, like not written aspect. So it's like everyone knows not to be discriminatory, but there is no law that says that you can't be. So that's for me the main issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for your question, Onup-san. Okay, let's move on to the next one. What new skills have you acquired in Japan, John?
Yeah. So I think this is well known, but Japanese people are very detail orientated. So they look at very small things, and I found myself doing the same thing. So I look at those sort of smaller details, which kind of how do you say, like if there's a plan or there's a decision to be made, it's easier for me to see possible issues that could arise from within that plan or that idea, and then I can point that out and say, okay, in this situation, what happens if this happens, or what happens if this happens? So it's easier to sort of imagine the possible issues that might arise out of something. So in that way, detail orientation is it really helped
increased. You're
increased.
much more detailed, and you will
Oh yeah,
spot the like errors and
yeah,
things.
and also if you're like in a team or anything
Mm,
like that, better understanding of what each person is doing and
mm,
your decisions. You have a better understanding of what would be better decisions to make because you understand better what everybody else is doing and what
yeah.
will be easier for everybody else. So
Mm,
that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more consideration, I think, just for the
yeah.
team in general.
Cool. And then who has influenced you in terms of either language learning or working abroad?
I mean, no one's really influenced me in terms of language learning because, especially back in those days, not really
Yeah.
that many people that I could
Mm,
look up to, especially UK.
yeah.
Japan is like over there. It's
Exactly.
halfway there.
That's another thing that, in Australia, people, well, they teach Japanese in like elementary school and
Yeah.
it's quite, have strong connection. But in UK, to have that motivation, I do find it's quite extraordinary to keep that motivation to make it happen.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's most people will choose a European language like
Mm.
Spanish or French or German or something and just try to master that. And I'm here with Japanese and it's like, who else is with me? It's like nobody. So um, in terms of working abroad, the person that came to my mind was Chris Broad, who
Mm.
is a very famous YouTuber. He's
Okay.
also British and he's also from
Yeah.
London. And
Right.
he moved to Japan about 10 years ago now, I think. And he
Mm.
started to make videos of his life in Japan.
Mm.
And they were always very entertaining. I highly recommend his channel.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
yeah, it was very inspiring. Like, oh, if I go to Japan, I'll experience all this cool stuff and maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll make my own videos and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm.
yeah, big
Yeah, well,
influence.
that's kind of, Onub-san asking, are you happy with your job in Japan? I'm so happy with Japanese. But yeah, life in general, after you moved to Japan,
Mm.
are you happy? Fine, you made it.
I'm happy to I'm happy to be here,
Yeah.
for sure.
Mm,
Um, I think there are this this is difficult to talk about because there's some things which have nothing to do with Japan. It's just like you, right?
mm,
That it's nothing to do with the environment itself. It's the actions that you take
right.
within
Mm,
Japan that's going
mm-hmm,
to matter more.
mm,
So um, says anybody who moves to Japan to say like if they're happy or not, it's going to obviously be very difficult to sort of measure. But for
mm,
me, the way it is now, I feel happy. I feel like I have a lot of freedom to do things because I'm not Japanese,
mm,
and
mm-hmm,
in some ways, I can be very valuable to a lot of
yeah.
people and
Mm-hmm,
organizations. So in that way, I feel relatively happy, I'd say.
mm. Awesome. Well, the most important questions from John. What would you give, for if anyone want to work in Japan or
Mm,
actually currently working, what would be
mm.
the top tip from you?
I feel that a lot of people who want to come and work in Japan
Mm,
um, may be caught up a little bit more with the idea of living in Japan.
mm,
But they really do need to understand what working in Japan entails and the differences and expectations. Uh, I mean, if you don't really understand your industry within Japan, you definitely need to understand how that's doing. And yeah, have an accurate understanding of what it entails to work and live in Japan as much as you can, anyway. But to also know that, as you said before, people like me have done it. We're here,
mm,
you know.
yeah.
We are living in Japan, and we're not, feeling to commit suicide or anything like that. So,
Don't work too much. Don't work too much.
the train doesn't look good to me yet. So, if you want support and stuff like that, people are here too. So just know that.
Mm. And when decided to come to Japan, I
Mm,
assume you came by yourself, right?
I
How
did.
did you
I did.
establish, like how long in total now you live in Japan?
Just over 6 years now, 6.5 years.
6 years,
Yeah.
right? So from first time to now, you've seen so many different, but how did you establish your like peer, support or friends, or how did you do that?
Yeah.
Is it doable?
Of course,
If
it's
you don't know
doable.
anyone in Japan.
I think for me a good starting point is like language exchange.
Mm,
Getting to know people, getting to know Japanese people, just outside of Japan. I think is almost as important as getting to know people in Japan, and just understanding what Japanese culture is about, what it's like to interact with Japanese people, and you can develop, I think, a lot of relationships that way, friendships that way. And then when you're in Japan, I mean, for me, like practically speaking, I was in a share house
mm,
that was like 50% Japanese, 50% foreigners, and I made a lot of friends there actually. That way, otherwise, it's like, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? And being involved with groups and events that cater around that, and just finding people that way. Yeah.
うん、うん。Awesome. Well, thank you. And じゃあ後半、後半もうすぐあと
Go on.
5分でラップアップしたいと思うんですけれども、
Yeah.
最近行った、ジョンのおすすめの抹茶のお店、デザートがどこですか？皆さんもしよかったらおすすめ。はい。あ、それはどこですか？
祇園辻はですね、本店はですね、京都なんですけど、
あ、京都。
東京にも、
うん
支店があって、
はい。
ですね、東京駅の、その近くにある、大丸、あるんですけど、大丸ってわかります？
わかります。はい。
大丸の10階に、
うん。
支店があって、
へえ。
いつも行ってます。
いいね。でも、それって辻りって書いてあるやつ、お店で。
そうですね。まあ、
多分ロンドンにもあると思う。知ってる？
いや、
ロンドンにもね、辻り違うのかな？違う抹茶屋さんかな？うん。
辻りを使う言葉って、
うん。
使うそのお店がいっぱいあるので、
あ、いっぱいあるんだ。
どの辻りなのかちょっとわからないですね。
本家じゃなかったかな。
祇園辻りっていうのもあるので、サリオ辻りとかいろいろある。
すごい。すごいですね。I'm so impressed. Like, like I said, the thing I learned from John is that dedication. You one day started to, okay, want to live in Japan, how to get there, and you learn from scratch. But
Yeah.
also went to school and stuff.
Yes.
And no one forced you to do that. And that's the amazing thing, right? And then you said there's no one that inspired you. But you maybe some YouTubers and people who are already there indirectly influenced you. But still, I find it's very inspiring. So, Manabe-san, thank you so much. これかな、祇園辻り everyone. If you're in Japan, lucky you all. If you're in Tokyo, Kyoto, I'm sure you can enjoy matcha dessert and yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know if this is necessarily just a cultural thing or this is like a me thing necessarily, but when I'm motivated to do something, I put all my energy into doing it. That's just the kind of person I think I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly. It's just I had that feeling of trying to, understand Japanese. I gave it a try and I found out to be the thing for me, and it just ended up here. So yeah.
Did anyone keep coming? Why are you studying Japanese?
A lot of people did actually. A lot of people did.
でしょ？だよね。
Why Japanese? It's like the most unusual. But I think because I would say though, I was like a gamer from when I was like 3 years old. And I got into anime some years after that. And long story short, I had that understanding of Japan and the things that Japan produced I liked. So I was already within like, I don't know how to say it, like into that Japanese subculture. So from there, me learning Japanese was kind of just a sort of a natural step, I think, more than anything.
Wow. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you for everyone like commenting and interacting with us. Hope you had a insightful session, learning something from John. And before we close this, we tonight, working with Japanese. The reason why, we have met through Clubhouse, and yeah, John's been amazing moderator. We all we have 10 moderators in total, and every week we have different topics to talk about. And this week, tonight, it's going to be what brought you to Japan.
If you want to hear people who are better at speaking and have more knowledge of Japan, please come. Way better than me.
Awesome. 皆さんありがとう。Inspiring. Yes. Great to have you all. Thank you so much. And see you guys next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. あり
Take
がとう。